Hey, everybody. Really excited for this chat today with EchoStor, a leader in the world of digital transformation and digital innovation. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Evan. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here. You're down in Connecticut. I'm in Boston, and EchoStore has a tremendous presence in the Northeast and New York. Let's start with some introductions and the amazing work you do helping businesses transform and innovate.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nick Sikorski. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing here at EchoStor. Obviously heavily focused into the tri-state area and kind of growing our business that way, as well as our specialty practices. So, obviously most of the partners have a very heavy data center play. We've outlined specific teams in support of that work in places like Microsoft, ServiceNow, AI, security networking. And so those teams roll into me as well. And we have a huge focus on growing those areas.
Well, it's a hot market at the moment, to say the least. And your customers, blue chip companies out there have challenges on their plate in terms of taking their business to the next level, leveraging AI and advanced applications. But what are they telling you? What's top of mind to many of your clients these days?
Yeah, it's interesting. Blue chip's the right way to say it. We're really heavy in the Fortune 500. We certainly do a lot of business into like the high commercial space as well. But the Fortune 500 has always been kind of the backbone of our business. They're seeing a lot of the same things that we're seeing in the channel, right? We've had this boom of startups and small companies and new ideas, pre-COVID, right? And then now there's been this incredible consolidation. So on the channel side and certainly the manufacturer side, and you mentioned security, especially security, we've seen an incredible consolidation there, and our customers are going through the same thing. We're for the last 15 years, we've worked with retail banks to get to the cloud and innovate process and be more competitive in that way. Now we're preparing them to buy other banks or to be acquired themselves. It's almost a different playbook. It's very, very interesting. It's a good time to be in the market.
It is indeed. And you touch every aspect of their business, from their data centers to security, digital workflows, tools. What are they struggling with, let's say? And how do you think about engaging with them to add value beyond what a traditional VAR reseller does, which is changing as well?
Yeah, I think it's funny. We spend a lot of time, like, speaking at colleges and speaking to young people, and
Mm,
if you ask young people in tech, hey, what area do you want to get into? They're like, oh, AI or the cloud, or even the application side. And people don't really talk about infrastructure much anymore, right? Or certainly not operations and that side. And so that trend is obviously that's the wave we're seeing with people. And as we get into the organizations, that's what's been going on for years, right? It's not sexy to talk about operationalizing a data center and having really, really strong programs and good management. Everyone wants to run to the leading and kind of cutting edge thing, which is great. That's what we should do. And I think COVID really amplified that. We were kind of joking before about all these, band-aids we were trying to put on places during COVID to, suddenly accommodate 5,000 workers at home or 10,000 workers at home and these different models. I think the basin's been neglected in a lot of places, right? Because people are thinking about the sexy things anyway. And then with COVID, they went running out to solve the biggest problems. So we're doing a lot of like the unsexy foundational work now.
mm.
Let's get back to principles. Let's have good fundamentals and kind of get things shored up in that way. Which never makes a CIO's career, right? It's not exciting to say I clean these things up, but they see the value in it, and our customers are really invested in that area.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you seem to have a very customer-centric strategy. You talk about an outcome-driven approach, which is a little unusual, that you're not just selling hardware and software. But how does that focus translate into measurable results for clients? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I think we forget sometimes in our industry. You work with your customers, and our job is to sell technology in a way. And I think
Mm.
you think sometimes it's their job is to buy technology, and that's not the case, right? Their job is to solve a problem internally. So if we're going to be their partner and not just be a vendor to them, we have to understand what they're being asked to do. Which I think is sales 101. People are asking those questions, but when we can get a little further from that to say, okay, here's what you're being asked to do, but why are you being asked to do that? Or maybe even further upstream, like, why is that group doing this thing? When we move into those areas, the whole business outcomes piece becomes much easier. When you look at transactions on paper, sure, we're adding capacity to storage. Sure, we're doing an operational project within ServiceNow, or we're doing something on Teams. Those are what the transactions are. But what they're actually buying is a new workflow that enhances a new business group, makes HR better, or they're buying capacity to support a new application that the marketing team wants to run for a digital marketing campaign.
Mm,
And so when we can understand what those things are, sure, maybe the actual product being delivered is still the same thing, but it makes it much easier and much more impactful for us to be supporting it that way.
it's great. And you have some really world-class industry partnerships, a who's who in the industry, really leading manufacturers. I mean, how does that collaboration work, and what does it mean to be a partner these days?
Yeah, you talking like our manufacturer partners, like the companies we resell their products.
Yeah, you have really an amazing list of partners.
Yeah, I think there's a nice edge to walk there, and I think some areas it's harder than others. Like you want to be very very strong in a space, and you want to have great technical acumen, before you even sign a partnership, right? And before you get into an area, and you want to be very focused before you get diluted. But then again, you have to have choice. And I think we're in a place now where the channel, when they're respected in an account, we have a lot of power in a good way. There's a lot of responsibility there. So it's no longer a matter of we are the X VAR, whatever that product is. We have to
Mm,
understand that space. And, it's forced a lot of people to get outside their comfort zone, some of the legacy players in the space and say, it's not good enough to just know this certain product set. We should know all their competitors and understand the space in that way. So, as we've kind of grown our list of partners and vendors, we've tried to be really, really careful and respectful, right? It's got to be someone we can bring a lot of value to. They can bring a lot of value to our customers back, a place that we can really invest in certification, capabilities, all those pieces before we put them on the line card. And that's a really good balancing act that's worked out really well, and our customers appreciate it.
yeah, well done. And how do you think about operations and operational expertise? I mean, things like project management and execution. I mean, these sort of things make a big difference. What are the expectations these days from your clients for these kind of transactions?
Yeah, I mean, this dovetails in an initiative that we're really digging into where, in the channel side, services has always been kind of like the gravy for us, right? Hey, make your
Mm,
margin on services, do a great job. And so, in the channel, we've dutifully tried to capture all the services we could, as we should. I mean, even simple things like a shelf install in a storage array or server deployments, things like that. For years, that was a really good way to, show value, have our customers feel comfortable, knowing that our people are doing it. There's continuity, all those things around trust. But we've seen a real commoditization of services where
mm,
the same way our customers are thinking further up the stack, right? They're no longer looking at, hey, here's how I'm impacted with firmware updates and patching and very fundamental things. They're thinking, abstract even away from the compute platform. Our services have to follow that to be impactful. And so, we've made a really good push in the space to work much closer instead of against, the outsourcers that are in our customers' environments, and, support them on a lot of like the tactical execution level things,
mm.
and put our best people in the highest places to impact them from there. So to your original question on operations, I think it plays out the same way, right? I mean, an operational conversation used to involve, hey, what rolls into system center from the servers, and how are we acting on these things, and what does that mean? And instead of having talent depth on that, like let's roll out a team of people to do all this patching and all this firmware upgrades, we've kind of ascribed to talent density. So instead of talent depth of a team of people rolling out, talent density becomes, let's have an ultra talented person, maybe a more expensive senior person, come in and set a strategy and a framework, and let's
Mm.
share that with our customers. And then that way they can own it, they can roll their teams into it. And then when we leave, they're not high and dry, they're not dependent on us, and that's worked really well in that space.
Yeah, well said. And speaking of talent, you guys do attract many of the best and brightest, which is great to see. I saw one of your recent hires in data security, with like 12, 15 years with Deloitte and others. So are you trying to be the sort of trusted advisor when you hire this sort of security talent? I mean, how do you see yourself helping when it comes to security, emerging security threats above and beyond what, the vendors are promising?
Yeah, I think when we're trying to walk this balancing act of understanding all the products in a certain space, right,
Mm,
which means you have to have a conceptual understanding, not a product understanding. And then when we're also really committed to this talent density versus talent depth thing, it changes the way you hire. It's no longer a let's put a posting and and create a rec and add people into recs. For us it's more a matter of we're constantly looking for talent, and when we find great people we make positions for them, instead of saying, hey, we have to fill this position. And there's certainly times we have to fill a position, but we put a lot of work into our talent pipeline as much as our business pipeline, and the
mm,
results are there. And I think if in terms of spending time with our customers on the actual business, that's critical. But the time we spend away from them on recruiting the best people, that's a long tail impact to them that they're really going to benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. When it comes to modern workplace tools and, particularly around AI tools, everyone's experimenting, doing pilots, proof of concepts, maybe deploying different tools. I mean, how do you see the rise of AI within your clients in that space and others? And how are you using or thinking of using AI in your business operations?
Yeah, so I've been in the channel not a very long time, but long enough. I'm in my 17th year now in the selling space and the channel side. So I can remember the virtualization wave. I can remember a lot of other major shifts. Cloud was the first time that it almost seemed like the excitement outpaced the actual adoption, right? Where people were so far ahead, we were almost like unselling, like slow down, slow down. Let's take a look and plan this correctly, and AI is even further. And I think the exciting part about AI and the hard part is back to my business outcomes conversation you and I just had. Like, there's incredible stories that are out there, but the stories are big and transformational, and that's a good thing, right? We want to work toward these big, transformational, incredible outcomes for our companies, but there's not always a clear roadmap to get there. So I think a lot of our customers are finding, and we're seeing a lot in the market where people have a very grand vision, but they have a very, very short playbook that's been developed so far, right? Here's the first pieces. Now where we go from there. So, it's an abused, saying, but we're really pushing people back to crawl, walk, run. Like, let's find, very manageable things we can start with. I think the other side of this that's happening too is there's a lot of we have a solution, let's find a problem. Not necessarily we have a problem, let's find a solution. And I think in AI, that's a good exercise because we're not solving things in the same way we've solved them before. So the whole art of the possible is a great idea. If we come up with a solution, like, we should be thinking about how we could use it to solve problems, but we just can't let it get ahead of ourselves. We can't be trying to force fits for things. And so balancing all of those pieces has been a challenge, but it's an incredible opportunity. I think, again, the impact it's going to have in our organizations, the way that they work and what they're able to do is going to be incredible. And whoever can really map that process out with our customers and help them get there first is going to be an incredible beneficiary of that.
Wonderful. So you work with so many different clients and different industries. I don't want you to call out your favorite children, as it were, but any anecdotes or stories around clients, maybe New England, here in Boston, where I am, that you'd like to share or highlight?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite thing to talk about, right? It's our customers. So, it's actually a quick look back on that topic too, right? I mean, COVID was an interesting reckoning for the channel, I think. Again, it's, as big as we may be in the channel, we're all small businesses compared to the Fortune 500. And I think if you were a channel partner who was ultra specialized in a certain vertical, you might have been staring into the abyss during COVID. If we were
Mm.
based on gaming or hospitality or maybe even retail, if there wasn't a strong online retail, I mean, that was a scary space. So, partly because of the market we're in, the Northeast, but also partly by strategy, we were really, really well diversified in the verticals we were into. And, that's obviously served us very well. For example, like our healthcare business has a very different curve than our utility space, than does our financial services. We
Mm.
also do a lot in high tech, a lot in bio. So there's a lot of things that are happening there, as well as, manufacturing. But me personally, or I can speak to that part, I came up through the utility space.
Mm.
My biggest customers are in that space. And I always kind of joke, it's not often, I have friends that are living in the hedge fund space. And I think there's a lot of sexier things that are happening there sometimes. But I'm partial. I love working with my utilities. They're my favorite. I mean, I was kind of joking the other day. I think 3 or 4 tables at my wedding were all people from the utilities that I've worked with for years, and I love it. And they do a really good job too of kind of moving ahead of the curve. So it's okay if I give you a couple stories of things that we've done in that space I think are really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love that. I mean,
Perfect.
they're unsung heroes. So yeah, gotta thank them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too. It's a tough model in utility space. Like, I think people look at it and they go, "Well, your customers are fixed, so how
Mm.
hard can it be?" But the reality is they have to balance, incredible costs and incredible cost variables, right? Both buying power and supporting people, and then again, like, you don't get to get away from any customers. You're responsible for everyone. It's incredible. And in that vein, so we work with one of the mega utilities here in the Northeast, and working through this AI project right now, looking at the way that we can use different images for tracking the power lines. So if you're as a user,
Wow.
and you probably do get power from my customer I'm talking about here, Evan, but if your power goes down, we have that app OMS or whatever. You can go in, you can check it out, and you can
Oh yeah,
report when your
sure.
power is out. Yep. And or if a car hits a telephone pole, or if a transformer explodes, like people report that. So if I'm the power company, it's easy for me to know where my outages are because it's all coming in constantly live. Where they have blind spots are, major distribution lines, right? Or really, really rural areas where they have those big lines running through the mountains, through Vermont, up to
Mm,
Canada, those areas. So historically, it was, people in helicopters flying up and down, taking a quick look, or it was teams on ATVs, doing routine kind of scheduled trips through there, which is great for, kind of proactive stuff, right? Like tree encroachment or things like that. But in a reactive state, if a huge tree falls or there's a washout that damages the lines, which has happened, we've seen storms happening lately, you just
wow.
can't get to it and find it. So you're blind. So they've moved now to using drones to take pictures and do imaging of those
Mm,
areas, which creates, again, every solution creates a new problem. The new problem now is incredible data sprawl and an inability to kind of make sense of those images. So our teams are working really closely together right now to create through an AI platform, a way to kind of trigger those alerts for anomalies. So the first part becomes, oh, a tree has fallen. Like the picture every day is
mm.
very different. Something's a huge change. Let's look at that. Let's trigger our response team to look at it and figure out if we should send a team up there to do tree work. But then they can get to like a proactive phase where it's, hey, like we're seeing the trees growing in on these lines. We project in 10 to 12 months, those trees are going to be close enough where we're going to have to schedule that tree work. Let's schedule it now, which again saves a ton of money because we're not doing emergency tree services, which we pass on to the customers for savings. So there's a lot of benefits that come in that way, but it's almost a backwards model. It's like instead of creating more value in a way, we're trying to create value in the sense of efficiency and cost savings and passing that along.
Oh, that's incredible. As an electrical engineer, I almost went into the utility space. Might have been an easier, more interesting life, to be honest, than tech, but would love to have them on the show someday. That sounds phenomenal, and we're all living through these storms and disruptions. So, what a great anecdote. What are you looking forward to in the run up to the year end? I probably closing the year, I imagine, but you do a lot of events and meetups and other things. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, so we're really fortunate, where we've achieved our company numbers long ago, right? So what we want to do for our projections and how we're growing, our growth rate's extreme. So when you have easy problems, it's easy to focus on bigger things, which is a nice thing. So we're growing so fast that I've been able to spend Q4 planning for 2025, out of 2028. So for us, our big thing is back to our original conversation here is the talent pipeline. We have we're fortunate where we have a huge line of people who are eager to come here. That's exciting, right? And we're trying to find a way to work with them and create a really good plan with them and figure out how we scale. And so the things we're really focused on right now are protecting our culture, protecting our model, protecting our brand. Right, as we get further away from kind of our core space, how do we make sure that people are carrying on the way that we operate now and the standards we hold and the way we want to focus and we're exploring a lot of ways to try to achieve that.
A wonderful vision and mission, and congratulations on all the success, Nick. Thanks for joining and just sharing a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on, Evan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening, watching, sharing as always.